friends. We're gathered here today to talk about at this point, fair to say, historic brand. It's been celebrating, I think, either 17 or 20 years anniversary. MONTALE. Pierre MONTALE first started making his perfumes within the Middle East royalty and kind of upper class. And this is yet another example how kind of Westerners go out in the world, very commonly in Middle East, which you can kind of trace the same story in many different brands. Very similar story happened with Pierre MONTALE. He got fascinated with one of the royal ouds, you know, the wood of kings, so-called oud. And basically the brand as it stood for many years, and I think still the legacy of it as it stands right now, is basically three main accords: oud, vanilla, musk. Also, MONTALE brand created the most iconic, to be repeated and referenced and re-referenced, is stolen and duped for many decades, well, 2 decades, the kind of mono-accord, almost boiled sweet vanilla musky olfactory profile that it's commonly called mono-accord. So this is a very vibrant yet very dense, and then some critics say one-dimensional. The monochordic perfumes that they are known for, they kind of create a very clear olfactory perception from the get-go. There's not any kind of traditional pyramid there with subtleties in the way that the opening of the scent happens and it transfers into something or morphs into something else in the heart and then in the base and yada yada yada. MONTALE perfumes basically punch you in the face. They declare their presence from the get-go, and basically with time just slowly die down in volume. And some people do like it, some people don't. The world kind of split in two when the MONTALE became at some point a best-selling brand in the niche category, because they were so innovative and unapologetic about this kind of monochordic, I wouldn't call it flat, but dense and bright and very definite sound, like the way that their perfumes behaved in time and space. The oud vanilla musk story are probably what the perfumer thinks their legacy is. However, what I've seen from the best-selling lists by MONTALE, what the fragrances that are best loved by millions of people everywhere in the world, are basically a new generation of gourmands. Meliora did its own number with ethyl maltol and the sugary note that later became mainstream and like kind of supported by Poison Girl, La Vie est Belle, and many others. But what MONTALE did, they really brought in the edible vanillin with sort of confectious, like very hard candy and over-the-top edible gourmands with kind of sweet boiled musks together. The world split in two. Some people absolutely adore the Mouhalat, the Roses musks, the probably two best-selling fragrances of all time by MONTALE. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've seen so far. And those that like want to stay like as far as it gets from there. In a way, the Roses musks and Mouhalat by MONTALE are the Baccarat Rouge of the kind of the mid-2000s. I'm in the camp of people who can't really tolerate it very well. My first MONTALE was Cafe Intense, I think, and that was already as gourmand as it gets. I got Cafe Intense from St. Bird in the hopes of finding that kind of coffee shop type of feel, and very quickly I became very quickly obsessed with it, and then I got a few comments that it was a bit much, that I was losing basically sensitivity of my nose to notice that I oversprayed it. And this is something to know if you're looking for bespoke perfumes, if you really care about kind of the trace that you leave behind and the loudness and the staying power of perfumes, Montales rarely disappoint, if ever. So for me, that was a bad thing. And soon enough, I parted with it. My mom got the Cafe Intense. She absolutely loved it. She is the like confident gourmand oversprayer. She loved it. She used it up very quickly. I started a very careful, slow search for the Montales that would please my particular sensitivity, like my taste when it comes to olfactory design. The first one that I bought blindly, but I read a lot about it, and this is my version of Roses Musk, which is like a characteristic sweet monochord bright musk by Montale, is, let me also decorate it so you can see the full packaging. Oh, this is what happens with them all the time. This is why I don't put these little trinkets on them. This is Black Musk. As much as I appreciate what Montale did for the world of fragrances, including the packaging, they were, as far as I know, the first ones to use this kind of aluminum bottles design. Now a lot of perfumes followed suit, and like every once in a while you see this kind of flask design popping up here and there. However, they were the ones, and yet it's still, as almost always with Montale, a very polarizing feature of their offerings. I already showed you, like every time you have to take this thing off in order to use the fragrance, but when you do it, more often than not, you will lose the sprayer. So you also don't know how much you have left in your bottle, but at the same time it's protected against the damaging sunlight. The Black Musk, my first full-size bottle, is a very brutal, to me, kind of black, like thick black leather purse type of perfume. You know, the kind that is like super thick, like probably pig leather or pressed leather. Something that holds its shape very well, something that is like half of my finger thick and just has this, to me, very characteristic scent that I find here. It's unapologetically unisex. I cannot see it leaning either way, to be honest, because I wear it very confidently, and some people say, oh, it's such a masculine scent. I don't see it as either feminine or masculine. I just see it as very brutal, very kind of butch in a way. Every once in a while, I come back to it and ask myself, can I still wear this? The smokiness and the tar, some kind of like smoky tar in it that combines itself with sweet base of a very edible vanilla, always kind of makes me feel like I'm in a power suit of the 80s. It's like a protective gear. And every once in a while when I come back to it, I become a little bit self-conscious about, should I really wear this outside? Will people notice? Will they judge me? But at the same time, once I put it on, immediately I don't care. In a way, this is the kind of perfume that I would wear for hard negotiations, when you have to assert yourself without necessarily saying a word. When everything in my outfit, in the way that, in my hair, in my face, and non-verbal clues should be very assertive and definitive, Black Musk is what I wear. This is my Roses Musk, this is my version, because I could never really go for the Mucalat or Roses Musks, but Black Musk is where it's at for me. And this is the one that very commonly gets stolen temporarily by my male friends, because it's kind of like Motor Jacket of a perfume. All right, let's go toward more traditional offerings. I have a sample here because I usually don't really have a need to have a lot of sweet ouds in my collection, but every once in a while I get a few here and there, and I just use them almost interchangeably. Montale has, I think, about a dozen, several dozen, 50, I don't know. I think they have dozens upon, let's say dozens upon dozens of oud perfumes. So the one that I have here is a very fine specimen. This is Oud Dream. Not gonna lie, there is one Oud by MONTALE that stole my heart lately, and that's Oud Vanille by MONTALE. And I think that is even fluffier, more round, more creamy, more like teddy bear type of Oud Vanille combination. The Oud Dream by MONTALE, however, comes like as a close second. So me going through all of my sweet ouds, trying to decide which ones I actually do really want in the full-size bottle, I would go for Oud Vanille Meliora, but it might be that for a lot of you, a slightly brighter and a little bit more honey-like, almost, you know, honey sometimes can have some kind of sharpness if it's like especially buckwheat honey, like darker types of honey. This is the kind of like sweet sharpness that all of a sudden comes out of Oud Dream by MONTALE. I do like it a lot. It's very gourmand. It's not a medicinal oud, it's a sweet, kind of almost like a pound cake if it could be made of oud. Comfortable to wear, long lasting, very mono accord though. It's true of all the MONTALE fragrances, but I think I'll have to keep repeating it so you kind of know what to expect, so you're not disappointed. Like these scents are basically, as soon as you spray them, it's like, I am what I am, I'm not gonna change for no one, neither for you. You either like me or you don't. And I do like Oud Dream, but I think I like Oud Vanille by MONTALE more. So, but that's a very, very good option, especially if you can find it on sale somewhere. Now we're going towards their other woods. They started kind of straying away from their classic formula in later years, because basically they beat the musk vanilla oud theme to death. There were like so many of those fragrances, it was hard to even choose between them. So one of the experiments that they did was Wood Forest, which I have a full-size bottle, bought it blindly, and so happy that I did. Again, just for demonstration, we'll show you how it looks. They usually also come with pouches, which I really have no use for. And Wood Forest is, in my book, the trend that is the trend of 2021. I've seen it around. I've seen it in so many different niche and now designer brands that check it out. If you're looking for a more affordable and not crazy expensive niche option, Wood Forest might be it. So what separates modern woody oceanics from what we're used to see, used to from the 90s, like being Calvin Klein 1, Light Blue by Dolce & Gabbana, Davidoff Cool Water, and others of that era. The 90s aquatics, they can be, first of all, they are unapologetically synthetic. Second, they usually combine certain fruitiness, such as kind of watermelon or maybe pear or maybe peach, with that kind of like ocean freshness typical feel that you get now in most laundry detergents. Here, the new age oceanics are salty. They have a bit of this kind of swampy, or rather the algae, you know, the blooming microorganisms feel, or like the blooming swamp type of feel. They do turn towards a kind of reclaimed oud that's mixed with minerals and salts, and even sometimes certain kind of rotting smells. Whether this is delightful, breezy and freeing, or swampy and rotting, really depends on like how much do you actually love the actual smell of the marina, or of a well-used boat. So Wood Forest to me doesn't really have much of the forest references. To me, this is a marine oceanic with a little bit of the seaweed fragrance with a solid woody base. Monochord, bright, long-lasting, both cheerful yet unusual and interesting. So if you are looking for a I wouldn't say affordable, but manageable option, it depends on where you shop for it, of one of the trendiest olfactory designs of 2021, the kind of the seaweed, salty oceanic woods, Wood Forest by MONTALE. It's a very good specimen. Now toward Santal Wood. I got this one. It's a more kind of classic woody combination. I was curious how MONTALE would do it, and I got mine as 8 ml from Scentbird. Santal Wood by MONTALE. So I knew that MONTALE had its very unique take on oud, which is usually vanilla musky sweet, kind of almost edible and very gourmand take on oud. I was curious how they would stray away from it toward a wider variety of woods. So how did Pear MONTALE play on the wider variety of different wood accords? Santal Wood, to me, even though it's very recognizable Santal accord, it really misses the whole point of how multifaceted Santal can be. The Santal in Serge de Tons, I think Santal majuscule, is very much like a vanilla milk. The Santal in Floris, which is a British style of blending, it's almost like a polished spear, wooden spear made of Santal that later opens up with almost kind of a fruity floral facet to it. But the Santal Wood by MONTALE, to me, forever stays in this area of cliche, synthetic, what the woody accords could smell like. This is the example where doing a monoaccord, unapologetic, synthetic version of Santal with woody notes didn't really play, like, it didn't pay any dividends, at least not to my nose. It's just, I'm sorry to say, it kind of smells cheap to me, because even though with Black Musk, the monoaccord, the black granite of that fragrance creates a very solid, dense experience that you almost want to chew into, you want to grab that thick black leather purse. Here, it's rather a cheap plastic toy that is painted as if it's a wood trunk. Another departure was their take on black pepper. They actually have a few fragrances that have black pepper or peppery, like hot spicy notes at its very heart, its very beginning, the opening, the heart and the base. And I got myself Greyland. Greyland, to me, is a cold black pepper powder. This black pepper, I don't think will please everyone about the same, but I actually have a soft spot for chilling, cool, as long as they are not too vetiver or mineral type of spices. The very cold, stony mineral spices such as Encre Loire, Bailalique and some others, I can't really tolerate very well. But when the spices are just cool enough in terms of that they don't really go to any kind of obvious gourmand or any kind of super spicy or lavendery fougere or shipper green notes, when they just stay as almost like a chill breeze that runs through the room, that's the kind of spices that I personally prefer. And MONTALE Greyland is just it. It just gets the job done. Is it the most realistic, the most rich, the most multidimensional black pepper scent? No, I don't think I found one yet. But it comes pretty darn close if you like the aspect of kind of very dry, cool, very focused type of olfactory profile. I am considering getting a full-size bottle after I'm done with the decant. The reckoning time will come when I finish this, but so far it's probably my It's my third favorite. Yes, it's in the top 3. Like I'll need to think about the ranking there in the top 3, but it's definitely in the top 3 of my favorite MONTALE fragrances. Now we're getting to hot tickets, at least in the perfume community. Our one and only Joss Jane sent me a decant of Wild Pears by MONTALE. It's one of the best sellers, like more modern ones, like the newer ones. And it's basically their attempt to branch out from the Roses Musk while keeping sort of the same concept. Sweet, syrupy, again, unapologetically bright, vibrant, cheerful, almost juvenile in a way. But again, it kind of depends on where you lie on the spectrum of sweets, edible or just appetizing. Wild Pears, I love it on the blotter and on my clothing. Wild Pears on my skin, however, just usually it's the opposite. Usually any fragrance gets deeper and more interesting when you put it on skin. This is one case when it just doesn't happen. My skin brings something rather cheesy and kind of room refreshener or like toilet refreshener kind of thing out of it. You know, like very cheap synthetic flat synthetic pear note, and I basically resorted to only use it on scarves. It's such a vibrant, sweet gourmand that I think it's absolutely perfect for cold weather. But I think if it does sit well on your skin, sometimes such sweet scents blossom even more in moderate to high dry heat. Try it in the dry heat if you have it. Let me know what you think. And this is another kind of interesting twist that Tom Ford only, I think in 2020, they released the Bitter Peach, which was somewhat of a hit in certain places, not much of a bestseller in others. And a lot of people who are big fans of Tom Ford have been kind of ramping up the volume of complaints that Tom Ford is kind of cheapening their pyramids. They're making them way more youth oriented, and by that it seems they're just making fragrances more flat and more almost like celebrity, like Britney Spears type of fragrances. It's a hotly debated issue. Like some people do sign off to these kind of criticism, some people don't. But why would you spend 300 or something for Bitter Peach when you can have Wild Pears by MONTALE? That question, just putting it out there. I think if you really enjoy syrupy, fruity fragrances, MONTALE has them all. It has, I think, something about mango, obviously Roses Musk. Just a question. I'm just curious. If you guys tried both the Wild Pears by MONTALE and Bitter Peach by Tom Ford, let me know. Are they similar, dissimilar? What do you think? What's worth the money? Wild Pears by MONTALE or Bitter Peach by Tom Ford? I'm kind of curious to see what you know. And we're gonna close up with another interesting departure, which is the MONTALE take on Iris. I was particularly curious because I love powder perfumes. I love Iris in its many forms. And I thought, well, maybe this is gonna be the facet of powdery perfumes, the facet of Iris that I've never ever smelled before. Yes and no. So we here have Intense So Iris, which I have in a sample. And I would call it a really hard to discern mix between violet and iris that is very heavily kind of buried in the typical sweet vanilla-ish type of musk by MONTALE. Not my favorite combo, to be honest. I can see how it can appeal to a lot of people, and maybe if you really actually don't like powdery perfumes in general, at least the classic take on powdery irises, but you love roses musks and you love sweet musks, the over-the-top musks. You love Narciso Rodriguez, you love the classics by MONTALE, and you just want a interesting hint of something of a violet versus, slash iris as a hint rather than as a dominating note, then maybe as a slight yet comfortable departure, So Iris Intense could do the trick for you. For me, it's just confusing. This is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would be super curious to know what you think about the brand in general, about their infamous packaging, which I hate more and more, to be honest. I don't mind the bottle, but like the constant disassembly that happens with the accessory, it's kind of pain in the ass. What do you think about the fragrances, the classics, the directions that the brand has been taking recently? Do you consider them unisex? Do you consider them gendered by any means? Tell me everything. I'll be waiting for your comments. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't had a chance to do so yet. And I'll see you in the next video.